All right, thank you everyone for watching the first video on the 1099K matter. I appreciate all the comments, feedback. I've been trying to respond to your questions, but I wanted to create this second kind of part 2 video on the 1099K because there are a lot of common asked questions. Um, so I'll kind of get into it here. So to kind of start out with, Venmo, Square, PayPal, Facebook, StubHub, right? If you receive payments from those platforms and they were over $600 and you sold something, you're probably going to get a 1099K from them. And then they're going to send a 1099K to the IRS. And the $600 rule changed this year in 2022. It used to be $20,000 is the limit. So if you receive payments from one of those platforms, including Venmo, and they were, for, like a reimbursement, or your friend kind of gave you some money, lent you some money and you paid them back, you shouldn't receive a 1099K. But to be kind of certain, you probably want to reach out to them now before the end of the year, letting them know that, hey, I received this payment. It was for a reimbursement. It was over $600. There's no services. There's no goods exchange. I shouldn't receive a 1099K. Now, come January, if you do receive a 1099K and it's wrong and should have been zero, you can reach out to those platforms. You can reach out to Venmo. You can reach out to PayPal. You can reach out to Facebook. And you can say, listen, I received this 1099K. I received this money, but it wasn't for services or goods. And they can amend that. So I'll show you an example of a 1099K. And at the top of the form, there's a box that they can check, noting corrected, and it will be changed to zero. And they can file that with the IRS, and then they'll give you an amended copy. So kind of be on the lookout for that. Now, the big question here is Zelle, right? There's a lot of questions on, hey, I received payments from, via Zelle. Is that going to be, am I going to get a 1099K? So as of now, as of this video, you're not going to get a 1099K. And the reason why is because Zelle doesn't hold your money, unlike those other platforms. So Zelle is just kind of like an in-between, software that, you send money to other people, you're going to receive money from them. So if you're getting money from Zelle, you're not going to get a 1099K. Now, if you're a business owner or you're a contractor and you're doing services, you're doing work for someone else, and that person, that person paid you over $600, you might receive what's called a 1099 NEC form. And I'll show that to you at the end of this video. And if you receive that form, that means that not only you got it, but the IRS got a copy, which means that you got to report that somewhere in your tax return. So just because you're not going to get a 1099K from Zelle doesn't mean you're not going to get a 1099 NEC from whoever paid you. Now, if it's just friends exchanging money from each other, your friend's probably not going to file a 1099 NEC. But if you're, like an Uber driver, or you're kind of mowing lawns, or you're doing, you're a contractor, right? You're doing web development for some other business out there or for someone else, you may get a 1099 NEC. And if that's the case, you got to report that. Now, if you're a business, right? If you're a software developer, you're a web designer. All right, so to kind of continue, here's the Form 1099K. Here's what it looks like, right? So it's going to have the payee's information here, social security number, and then the filer's, social security number, EIN. And then here's the amount that is going to be reported on what you got paid, right? So eBay, let's take eBay for example, right? They use PayPal on there, and you got paid, $750. That's going to show up right here. And then a copy of this form is going to be sent to you. And then another copy is going to be sent to the IRS. And the whole purpose of the form is to it's like a tracking of, like a workflow tracking. So the IRS knows that you got paid this amount, so they expect to see it on your tax return. Now, as I mentioned earlier, that if you received one of these and you know it's not correct, meaning that you didn't do any services, you didn't sell any goods, it wasn't a business transaction, it was something personal, then you need to let these, payment platforms know, like PayPal, Venmo, that you received this, it's not correct, please amend it. So then what they're going to do is they're going to amend it. They're going to put 0 here. They're going to mark this box as corrected. They're going to send you a new version. They're going to send the IRS a new version. So to kind of, since this whole thing has been kind of a mess, there's a lot of confusion around it, I wouldn't be surprised that a lot of these payment platforms are going to be sending out erroneous 1099-K forms. So to kind of get ahead of it, if you think you're going to get one for something that you shouldn't get, you should kind of reach out to them now before the end of the year to kind of let them know. Also, if you did not provide your social security number to these payment platforms, you're probably not going to get a 1099-K. These payment platforms like, StubHub, Venmo, they're trying to get your social security number information, so they can kind of prepare this. Because if there's no social security number, there's no way for the IRS to kind of track what's happening here. Now, when you open up like a Venmo business account, it's going to ask for your tax ID, like your EIN or social security number. So just be on the alert for that. Now, going back to the whole Zelle situation, if you're getting paid via Zelle, you're not going to get a 1099-K this year, okay? However, there's this other form, this other 1099 form. It's called 1099 NEC. So just say you're, like a consultant, or you're doing some web development work for someone, and they're going to pay you $5,000 to do this work. And you're doing this for another business, right? Or it could be someone that's a sole proprietor that owns a business as well. What they're going to do, what they probably will do, is send you a 1099 NEC form. It's going to show $5,000. It's going to show your name, your social security number, your address, and everything. They're also going to send a copy to the IRS. And the reason why someone's going to send you this, if they paid you via Zelle, and that person that paid you owns a business, is they get to deduct that $5,000 that they paid you, but you still got to report that as income. And as a business owner that pays contractors, they're required, by law, by the IRS, to kind of complete these forms if they pay anyone over $600. And that includes like cash payments, check payments, and, Zelle kind of comes under that cash payment thing. So just be on the alert for all this. And again, the person that's paying you, if they don't have your social security number, they're going to request it, and they're going to send you a form called a W-9 form to kind of complete. So regarding the whole Zelle, to kind of recap, you're not going to get a 1099-K, but you may get a 1099 NEC form if you're doing like business services for someone, or you're selling goods for someone and you got paid. Now, if there's two friends and they're Zelling each other money for reimbursements, you're not going to get a 1099 NEC from your friend, right? But also kind of be on the, make sure you see my video on gifting rules. I don't want to call it a tax loophole, but it's another tax planning strategy where if you're sending money to someone else and it's under $16,000 during the year, that person doesn't have to report that as income, and you don't have to report that as well, that you're paying them the $16,000. Now, if it's over $16,000 that you're paying someone, then that other person has to file like a gift tax return. But watch my video on that. Next, we're going to go to a tax return here. So here's Cameron filing a single return, and Cameron receives a 1099-K. He bought he sold some tickets on StubHub, so he sold them for $900. We'll change this from eBay to StubHub. And someone asked a good question on YouTube about StubHub. And so $900, that's what his 1099-K shows. So he's got to report that because it's got a social security number. So the IRS is going to be expecting this, okay? So we're going to recalculate his return, and I'll show you where that's going to show up on the tax return. So here's his wages for the year, and then here's the $900. Okay, so it's other income, and then there's no self-employment tax or anything, but it's going to be part of his taxable income, right? So he's gonna, if you want to watch my other videos on, how the tax return works and everything, but here's his wages, here's his StubHub earnings. So his total income for the year is $60,900. He gets the standard deduction, and then that, and the taxable income, and then the tax on that $66,391. He had some withholding. So that's on like a StubHub transaction type where you're selling stuff. Could be same if you had a hobby, you're selling stuff on eBay, you kind of report that here. But now just say, going back to the web design work, and you're doing web design for some other company, and you get paid, $10,000 via Zelle, okay? That company's probably going to send you a 1099 NEC form, okay? So my suggestion here is you go to your Schedule C and report that $10,000 there. Now, as a business owner, right, you're running this business, doing some web design work, you probably have some expenses, right? So you might have some advertising expenses, okay, to kind of promote your business. You might have kind of bought a new computer, right? So you want to think of some expenses. And then in addition, you got this qualified business income tax deduction. I'll show this to you. So we're going to recalculate this tax return here for Cameron. And remember, he received $10,000, right? So that's going to be subject to tax. Well, here's where the $10,000 would show up. But remember, he's got some expenses to offset that. So that $10,000 is now, he's only reporting $5,500, okay? Plus, there's that qualified business income tax deduction, which is a deduction for business owners, pass-through entities. That includes, single member LLCs, S corps, partnerships, and that's up to 20% of this income here. So that's another tax deduction. So you don't want to miss out on this, and I can create a whole nother video on this topic of itself. But what I'm trying to get here is, if you get paid by Zelle, okay, and you end up getting a 1099 NEC, and it's because you actually did some services, which is fine, that doesn't need to be amended, but now you want to try to think of some expenses to offset that. So, and I showed you some examples, but don't miss this deduction here. This is a big deduction, and it reduces, so you're not seeing this $10,000 here. So anyways, hopefully this video helps. If you have any additional questions, leave them in the comments to the overall video. I'll respond to them. And if there's any other videos that you're interested in learning more about, let me know. I'm trying to kind of educate people more about the tax system, tax savings, tax tips. So be on the lookout. Thanks.